CTTB Music Podcast.
It wouldn't. However, we are back again. Another 6 albums to waffle over.
Cool.
And again, I think quite an interesting musical selection we've got this month. We have Run the Jewels 4, The Dream Syndicate, The Universe Inside, Sports Team Deep Down Happy, Phoebe Bridgers' The Punisher. Now, according to my talking speaker, this is Chloe and Halle, even though it says Chloe times Halle in their thing. It's the times rather than the plus, I'm sorry.
Yes.
But, you know, whatever it is, it's certainly Chloe and Halle together in some form or other.
I knew you. Yeah, go on.
And finally, Mr. Bob Dylan.
Oh, that's quite straightforward.
It is, yes.
I knew you'd struggle with that one. I just had a feeling.
Yeah, why do you think we're not reviewing the Haim, Harm, that I always struggle with as well album?
Yeah,
it's just like Haim, whatever the.
Yeah, exactly.
So we from Kickoff, Peter, with RTJ4. We last checked in with Run the Jewels on RTJ2.
Did we?
Missing. We did, yes.
All right.
Which we both liked. Have to be said.
Good.
So, do we like RTJ4?
Run the Jewels 4. I did. I really liked it. I thought this was a very fast-paced album. Moves along very quickly. So, you know, despite the lyrical content, the social commentary never feels as heavy as some of the lyrics might suggest it could. I thought it was, it's a quick album. It's an enjoyable album to listen to. I've had it on a few times, and it's quite good. Whether you're listening to it or whether it's on in the background, it's I liked it. Hang on, let me start that sentence again. Whether I was listening intently to it or it was just on, I did find myself sort of tapping my foot to it or whatever. Again, without labouring a point I've laboured before, really good music as well, particularly on the track. Never Look Back. It has some beautiful backing synths, real synths there. Really like that. But I also liked, is it Just with Pharrell Williams? That was good. That's good. And
a fantastic performance by Pharrell, in fact, on that track.
Yeah, and The Ground Below. And I also like the sort of the concept, if you will, of the Yankee and the Brave episode 4 intro and slight outro as well. It's sort of top and tail. Yeah, I like that. And of course, very topical. But then again, sadly, this stuff always is and always has been. So there we go. Overall, really like this album. Good one to start on.
It is a good one to start one. I agree. I think it's a bit of a return to form for me because, strangely enough, we didn't review RTJ3. And that was because it fell through the cracks because it was one of those things that came out in between things that we were reviewing. But I didn't rate that particularly highly compared to the first Jules album and RTJ2. I think this is certainly back up there. The Fury's still there. They're still bridging that divide as well between that kind of like cartoon rappers, particularly Yankee and the Brave thing. As you say, it is literally a cartoon version of themselves.
Yeah.
But also you got the social commentary coming through as well. interestingly, there's kind of less back and forth trading lines between LP and Killer Mike on this album than there perhaps has been on previous albums, but they still both shine through, I think. As you say, it flies by the album. It really does. It just it's as a couple of albums as in this podcast do. It goes by really quickly. You get to the end and go, oh, back to the start again.
Yeah,
let's do it again. Yeah. But also, as you say, there's particularly on the social commentary side, there's stuff that we're talking about now that we were talking about before. So I think it's on the track "Walking in the Snow."
Yeah.
When Killer Mike's talking about and you're so numb you watch the cops choke out a man like me.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh, George Floyd.
Yeah.
But actually, that's not about George Floyd. It's about when Eric Gardner back in 2014 was kind of put in a chokehold by police arresting him and died. So it's like, again, yeah, but it's now, but it's not now.
Yes, exactly.
And also, towards the end of the album, I really like the fact that the track that's got Mavis Staples. Interestingly, it's got both Mavis Staples and Josh Homme on, which is an interesting combo. Just generally pulling the pin, but that kind of ends with Mavis Staples delivering the line, "There's a grenade in my heart, and the pin is in their palm," which I think is, sums up a lot of what is going on at the moment. I mean, you identified some of the best tracks there. I think Just, which has been a single, which has, like I said, has some great works by Pharrell Williams.
Yeah.
His best rapping performance in a range. And I also really like Goonies and Never Look Back as well. But yeah, it's a really good record. I liked it.
Yeah. Really good record. Really good record. Great one to start on, as I say.
I was torn between starting with that and starting with the next album, actually, for different reasons.
Go on.
But so the next album is The Dream Syndicate, The Universe Inside.
Wow, very different reasons.
Which to say it's a bit different is a bit of an understatement. I think it's safe to say there's not many albums that we've reviewed ever in the podcast that kick off with a 20-minute opening track, which this does. A track called "The Regulator," and it's a fascinating track. You've suddenly got this kind of really thumping bass line, coupled with a repetitive kind of Lynn drum track, and then there's that bass part of the song. And then within that, you suddenly get some bluesy harmonica, then some jazzy sax coming in, and then some noodling and other thing. And it starts off as you might expect with a song that's 20 minutes long. It seems to start off as one song and then morphs into something totally different. But in this particular occasion, and particularly with this track, I actually think that's quite a good thing. I actually quite like this track. And I particularly like the sax noodling. It was particularly fine. By all accounts, this album resulted from a 80-minute plus jam session, and when you listen to it, it is kind of what it sounds like. And as is the case with all kind of jam sessions, as anyone's ever been in the band, it does mean you get a pretty equal divide between brilliance and then rambling, incoherent, shambolic, self-indulgent tosh. And for me, I think whilst the first two tracks contain definitely some of the brilliant sides of that, so the opening track, which I do love, and then it's followed up by The Longing, which is probably the closest thing on the album to a traditional song. That's great. And then the other three tracks on the album for me, despite the fact that it gets slightly more kind of Berlin period Bowie as it goes on. Yeah. I kind of lost interest as it went on. So The Regulator and The Longing kind of held my attention. But then, apropos of nothing, Dusting Off the Rust and The Slow Rendition, whilst not bad tracks in and of themselves per se, in the context of an album, I was left kind of slightly waning and going off on one. I should say for the band themselves, because again, a band we haven't dealt with before. Apparently they were formed back in 81, split up in 89, and then reformed in 2012.
Oh,
That's
right,
only their
okay.
8th album.
Right.
Their first album since reforming in 2012, because when they got back together, they were just doing, as many bands do, just getting back together and just performing their greatest hits, as you like.
Gosh.
So decent first half, meh, second half for me.
That's interesting. You said what you said about the first couple of tracks. I had a very, very similar, almost identical experience actually with the first 2 tracks. This is interesting. I could listen to the Regulator, followed by the Longing, and I thought, okay, this is going somewhere. I see where this is going. This is good. This is interesting, and then obviously apropos of nothing onwards. Like you, it just sort of faded into the background for me. It's a shame because, as you say, it does sort of head off in that sort of new psychedelic meets Bowie kind of, but Berlin Bowie, not early psychedelic Bowie. You know what I mean? It just loses something. I was thinking in my head then, just as I was speaking, what do you do if you cross Berlin Bowie with psychedelia? You probably end up somewhere near the beginning of Pink Floyd. So
you probably do, yes.
You probably do. and there
definitely is a prog rock element to this album.
Yeah, and if you sort of head down certain holes with Pink Floyd, you probably find it a struggle sometimes to listen through. So a kind of similar experience here. It probably deserves greater study, if anything. No, the difficult one for me, this one. Yeah.
So, switching tract? God.
Tact.
Yeah.
Tracks.
So this is when I'm in a warm room. I can't actually speak in human. Suddenly, I'm channeling Donald Trump. Let's not go there. Okay, so we have Sports Team, a debut album from the band, who I believe are originally from Cambridge.
Yeah.
And their album is Deep Down Happy. And funny if I chose to throw this one in just solely on the basis of having been in lockdown and listening to quite a lot of Six Music. The song Here's the Thing has been played to death on Six Music, so I thought, give their album. So, cool. Over to you, Pete.
What did I think? This would have been another good one to open with. As it was in my own listening, I opened with the previous album, then went into Run the Jewels, and then into this. The carry across in terms of social commentary, observation, with more of an English arched eyebrow, carries across into this. What have I written here? I've written classic English indie. Possibly another summer soundtrack to the lockdown, ? Maybe it was all the references to Wetherspoons and Ubers that got me nostalgic for days of yonder. But all said and done, great new sort of alternative rock indie acts in the sort of classic Blur model, if not always musically, certainly lyrically at times.
Yes.
And I thought it was that's again that sort of observation of growing up in an English suburb and living life. It's sort of album you don't hear so much anymore. I can see why it's been popular and why it's become so popular and why they as an actor popular. I understand they've developed quite a following. I sound like my dad. I understand there's quite a following.
Like true indie boys as well, they are also very keen at slagging off the competition as well.
Oh yeah, I saw some of that. I do an iota of research from time to time, and I saw that they tried to pick a fight with someone from another university, which is obviously, done some damage to their street cred. Posh kids pretending to be working class and all that. But you know what? All that aside,
to be the class.
Yeah. Sorry. I thought this was classic as opposed to classic indie album. And to wheel out one of my own classics, our own classics, thought the first half was much stronger than the second half.
I'm saving that for another album, but yeah. I agree. It's. I love how it starts. It starts with, as I said, song Lander, which is obviously short for Englander.
Yeah.
And it literally just, the vocals just kick in literally first second. With this kind of whole tune about the monotony of life in Middle England. And I love the thing, obviously, because partly because my job, but I like I want to be a lawyer or someone who hunts foxes. Line, and as part of the thing. Yeah, they're not talking about Weatherspoons and the Slugging Letters.
Yeah.
Musically, I think it definitely, as you said, it kind of pulls on or draws in from influences like Blur, Strokes, perhaps even Pavement, and even one of the songs in the middle of the album is actually reminded me a bit of The Cure for some unknown reason. But it is another entry into, as you said, kind of English, British literate pop tradition kind of songwriting. So apparently the main songwriter is, I think, the guitarist Rob Knaggs.
Yeah.
And his lyrics are mostly delivered by, obviously, the singer Alex Rice. But as you say, they talk about Weatherspoons, Slugging Letters, fishing, quite literally fishing and other thing. For me, I found it was one of those albums that was hard to dislike in any way.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But the quality is a bit patchy. So I think it starts really strong. So I think the first 3 tracks, Lander, Here It Comes Again, Going Soft, really good. Then it kind of goes a bit, and then comes back for kind of maybe Here's the Thing, Born Sugar and Fishing, which are really good. So it comes and goes a bit. And I was left thinking, I quite enjoyed this. It's quite funny. It got a bit of attitude.
Yeah.
A band to watch.
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Not quite.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, sorry.
No, agree, totally. Would be a great band to see.
Yeah, not the finished article yet, but...
Nah, but,
showing promise, even for a solid debut.
Yeah, very.
Sadly, I am going to use the word solid again in this podcast, but a solid debut.
It's a sort of debut that we've not had for a very long time.
This is true. It's not something we've had.
Yeah. So, I agree. I also like the song Camel Crew, which I think comes in that patch you don't like so much. But other than that, agree with that.
Moving on, while still staying, actually, for the first time in this podcast, sort of staying in the same genre, I suppose. Since the Phoebe Bridgers album, The Punisher, is still, I would probably say, still an indie album. So
yeah,
probably sticking with that at least. A second studio album from Miss Bridgers, who regular listeners will remember featured on 2 of the albums in our previous podcast, since she was on the Hayley Williams album and the Perfume Genius album. This particular record starts very mellow. DVD menu is a minute of atmospheric kind of bass and violin.
Yeah.
Lovely bass and violin, as we said, before cutting into the opening proper track, if you like, Garden Song. And what a wonderful song it is too, as far as I'm concerned. Partly because it sets up the style of the album, and also sets up the style of her lyric writing. So it has one of my favourite couplets on the entire record later on in the song, where it says, The doctor put her hands over my liver. She told me my resentment's getting smaller.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a great line because it's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Two lines that don't really.
I call that one as well.
A great line.
Yeah.
Yeah. We move from there and we change up a few gears into the excellent single off the album, Kyoto, which is a song that may or may not be written about Ryan Adams, since Bridges was one of the several women who complained about Mr. Adams's behaviour, shall we say. But it is just a fantastic song, Kyoto. It's just, there's a reason why it's a single. It's just really, really great single. And from there, the album kind of flips between topics of love, heartbreak, depression, and then musically between mellow and slightly more indie tracks, building up to the album's closer, I Know the End, sorry. Which is kind of some kind of like apocalyptic, almost folk ballad, which is quite interesting as well, considering we're dealing with a Bob Dylan album on this particular podcast. And actually, the instrumentation on that song at the end reminded me of actually some of the Bon Iver records that we've reviewed in the past. And also, as a final track, it's one of those things you're thinking, I could see this working as a final track in a live set list as well. Yeah. Has that kind of build, they're thinking, like this. Favourite tracks, I say Garden Song, Kyoto at the start, Chinese Satellite, I Know the End, which I just mentioned as well. This is one of these records where I definitely think the first half of the album is stronger than the second album for me.
All right.
Second half still good, don't get me wrong.
No.
And I genuinely think this is a solid album in the positive thumbs up sense of the word. One of my favorite tracks on the album is one of the songs in the later part, though, bizarrely, which is ICU, which is a song about breakup of one of the relationships she had. And again, just brilliant lyrics, because there's a group of lines in it where she says, "I hate your mom. I hate it when she opens her mouth. It's amazing to me how much you can say when you don't know what you're talking about." I was thinking, haven't we all been there?
We've all been there.
Yeah. So again, like I said, I think it's a classic me album.
Yeah,
I like
very much.
But it's not top drawer me.
Oh, right. Okay.
But it is solid. I think I like it. It's good. I would certainly be checking out future releases by Miss Bridges. How do you feel?
I was going to, you got that comment there. I was going to say, this album comes with that extra sticker on the front that you can peel off that says this is a Scott Vine album.
With this kind of album, where you go?
Yeah.
It's one of your records, isn't it?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah. One of those kind of female singer-songwriter indie people.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I agree with much of what you said. I actually, controversially, preferred the second half to the first half.
Controversy? Not agreeing? It's not allowed in this podcast, Pete.
Stop it. But I agree with you. It starts very mellow, very slow, and over the course of the album, it does build into this sort of great folk masterpiece. It's funny, you mentioned ICU, and I think Graceland 2, which is the track that immediately follows. I really like the switch to almost country there, as it builds towards that closing track. I thought that musically it growls at the start, and it grows and develops, and organically, start to get different instruments coming in, and very much like an orchestral sort of piece or composition in terms of, it starts very simple, and then by the end of track 12 or whatever, you've got the whole orchestra playing in full. This is not orchestral anyway. I'm just using an analogy, kids. So
well, there are strings and stuff coming in at the end of I know the end. There are strings and stuff coming in at the end of that.
Yeah. So am I using analogy or am I being literal? Who knows? It's quite hot in here as well. So yeah, it grows and grows, and I think another couple of listens from me, I'd probably have a greater appreciation of it. But this is definitely more of a you album than a me album. A little bit too slow for my liking.
I agree with that. It's surprising because sort of, and particularly when, I think particularly when you hit Kyoto as the third track, which is by far the most upbeat song on the album. You are kind of expecting more of that as the album goes on, whereas actually Garden Song, which is the second track, first track, is actually more representative of the vibe of the record.
Yes.
And I would agree, and that's slightly my problem with the second half of the album. The fact that the second half of the album doesn't have a Kyoto on it, so it doesn't have something to change the pace tone of the record. So, moving on to another new artists for us, and also again quite happily changing musical genre once more. We get Chloe times Halle, Chloe plus Halle, whatever they call themselves. It's definitely their second album, regardless of whatever they call themselves.
Oh dear, it's Chloe
and it's called The Ungodly Hour.
Yeah.
And this, I believe, Pete, is what the kids call R&B.
Oh God. All right, Grandad. Yeah, I understand it is. So you're asking me what I think. Right. What do I think? This is I actually really enjoy this album more so than I thought I would. Presenting me with title and genre. Actually, this is a great R&B album. It's got a really tight, by which I mean good, smooth production. A production and quality that's actually really engaging. It's also a really well-paced album. So whilst it may occasionally dip into sort of different styles in R&B, it does keep the pace up and going. And actually what I really quite like was mid album again. You've got some beautiful synths mid album as well. I think it's Ungodly Hour, the title track. It's not synths so much. It's more the sort of electronic sound in there that is just like I was just like
Well, that's
nice.
That track is co-written and produced by Disclosure.
There you go. You see, I didn't know that, but that's obviously why. Yeah, that's why it appeals. But lyrically, I like the tracks "Do It" and "Tipsy." "Tipsy" was quite fun, and "Busy Boy" that was also quite fun as well. Lusting after
Busy Boy has my favorite.
Lusting after a man.
Yes, busy.
You shouldn't really be lusting after.
Yes, Busy Boy has my favorite lines in the album.
Yes, some real comedy in that one. Which I like.
There is. There's a line. Just because there is a line anyways where it's without saying it, because actually it doesn't say it in the song, but it's like, it's 4:00. You're sending me too many pictures of your. Oh.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah.
Which I thought, which made me laugh when I was listening to it. It's good.
Yes. Yeah. Good non-use of that word. But again, towards the end, I really like the retro of "Don't Make It Harder on Me." And
okay.
Yeah, I really loved it. And despite it's been quite a fresh, modern take on R&B, I thought the sudden step towards retro was actually done really well. and Wonder What She Thinks of Me as well, which was again sort of more classic R&B, I guess. But yeah, I really like even those two tracks sort of stood out as just kind of really well presented towards the end of the album. So overall, as I say, really tight production, flows really well. Really liked it.
Boringly, I think I probably have to agree with, again,
controversial.
Most of that. Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is not. I mean, same as you, it's not something that's exactly in my kind of favourite genre category of stuff that we listen to. But the opening vocal harmonies of the kind of literally half-minute intro thing immediately put me in mind of En Vogue.
Yeah,
which is always good because I was a big fan of En Vogue. I thought En Vogue were brilliant.
Yeah.
And that also comes back later on in the album when you have a similar interlude for Overwhelmed, which is also lovely. And what I really liked about this record, which you sort of hit on, is the fact that the album started and then I realised the album had finished, and I thought, I'm still quite happy and cheery about this. And I'm thinking, it's because this album lasts for 37 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's literally a tightly focused collection of 3-minute pop songs.
Yeah.
They literally don't allow you to get bored.
Yeah.
So Forgive Me, which is the second track on the album, first proper track of the album, if you like, which is classic now R&B track. Kicks in, delivers, but it's over in 2 minutes and 38 seconds. This is the proof that it doesn't need to be longer. What I also like, there's no over-singing histrionics going on. There's no overly obvious choruses, for that matter, and none there's anything wrong with an over-obvious chorus. But quite a lot of pop music these days seems to be written from the chorus and then backwards from that. Whereas this album, I mean, it might have been written that way, but this album didn't feel that way. It definitely felt like this album was written, literally in a traditional song kind of way of let's just write the song.
Yeah.
And that might be a bit old white man moaning kind of stuff, but who'd have thunk it? You've identified some of the best tracks, I think. Bizarrely, as much as I tend to dislike Disclosure, I think the title track is excellent. Also really like Baby Girl. Lonely, I think, is a beautiful song. Final track, Royal. Quite funny. And Busy Boy, which we've both mentioned, which had the lyric I like. So yeah, this may not be my favourite musical genre in the world, but I thought this was a top drawer example of how to produce engaging R&B in 2020 without sounding like a cookie cutter artist.
Yeah.
And it was not hard to see why a certain Miss Knowles snapped them up into her management company.
Yeah, that's very clear.
Yeah. So yeah, actually really impressive. So we finish with the return of the Mr. Robert Zimmerman.
Mm-hmm.
With his 39th studio album.
Wow.
And first album of original material since 2012's The Tempest. And for me, at least, he's back. I mean, he's back. First of all, I should say, this is not a short record. This is a 70-minute long album. Divided, I think, if we're being musically, between sort of foot-tapping 12-bar blues type tracks, so False Prophet by Jimmy Reed, Beyond the Rubicon, and then contemplative ballads like My Own Version of You, I Made Up My Mind to Give Myself to You, Mother of Muses, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I like the fact, actually, that we're reviewing this album this month, because I was thinking a lot of rap when I was listening to this record.
Yeah.
No, because the thing is, what connects most great rap artists and Dylan is what he's always been known for, which is the lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, he's the king of social commentary and rhyming couplets in modern music. He's been doing it for 50 years.
Yeah.
This is what he's about. But also, so for example, one of my favourite lyrics in the whole album is, "Go home to your wife, stop visiting mine. One of these days I'll forget to be kind." Which is, kind of thing you could quite easily see on a rap album. And also from a humorous point of view as well, which rap is also known for. Also like, "I'll take the Scarface Pacino, the Godfather Brando, mix it up in a tank and get Robot Commando." That's the kind of thing you'd expect a rap artist to do.
Yeah.
Amusingly, what we had an album earlier on that started off with a 20-minute track, this album finishes with a track that's almost 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Murder Most Foul, which was released as a single, bizarrely. Well, I say a single, not really a single, but cause not as if anyone's going to play it as a single, but it was pre-released, which details the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And if I start with this and then go backwards from there, I mean, initially this is a spoken word piece with minimal piano and string accompaniment. And it's definitely one of these tracks that if you sit and close your eyes, put some headphones on, it's a very hypnotic piece, but you need the silence and no distraction, because otherwise it just comes across as kind of meandering background noise. Rest of the album, I think is really, really good. It is kind of laid back, but then again, he's 79, so,
Yeah.
be laid back. But the lyrics, the couplets are still on it. They're still strong. He's still telling stories that are interesting. And it reminded me of when we were reviewing the latter Leonard Cohen albums a few years ago. When you're sitting there kind of going, wow, this person's been releasing albums for ages, and yet they're pushing 80 and now they're kind of releasing stuff you're thinking, this is still actually pretty fucking good. There are people in their 20s, 30s, 40s that be killing to be releasing stuff that's as good as this now, never mind when they get to that age. So for me, it's his best album since Time Out of Mind, which came out in 1997, which is one of my favourite albums post-70s that he's ever released. Just a really, I found this a really, really, really enjoyable record. Surprisingly so, because like I said, I've last few Glenn albums over the last 10, 15 years, I've been and haven't really wanted to listen to again. But this one, I've actually listened to quite a bit already, and even forced the family to listen to. And even Diane said, "So this is all right, I know. Praise indeed. Praise indeed."
Wow.
How did you think on your listen?
My listen? I wish I'd come to this one sooner in my listening. I'd have had more time to take it in and to let it settle. It is, as you say, a finely produced masterclass of storytelling, songwriting, and at times he sounds like he's in conversation in the room with you, which is,
yes,
magical in terms of, again, the sort of power of the artiste, if you will. Now, power of the artist and the and his ability to convey, whether it's commentary, whether it's a tale of his life or tale of someone else's life, it's really powerful stuff. It's a power about 5 times there. Now, this is a really fine album. I will spend more time with this one. I think.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it.
It
is. But because it's quite a, actually, it is quite a quiet record, even with the bluesy things. It is something that you need to listen to without distraction.
Yes, definitely.
To actually take it in. But I said 79. Not bad going.
Not bad at all.
Are there only 39 albums? What's he been doing? It's not lazy much.
Well, it's like you said, you can still churn these out at 79. Hats off to the fella.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, it's come to that point.
It's come to that time. Wow.
When people can go, I am predicting your album with the podcast is... Run the Jewels.
Okay. It's a toss-up between Run the Jewels and Sports Team.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Run the Jewels probably edges it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's the Dylan album.
Obviously.
However, I think the Run the Jewels album is very, very good, and from a pure low, no expectations. Actually, it's pretty good point of view. The Chloe and Halle album, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely worth flagging up to people, because again, it's admittedly it's in their second studio album, but clearly an artist that I know nothing about. So they clearly haven't broken the UK, as it were, yet, or at least haven't, to my knowledge. Certainly, I haven't heard them on all of the radio stations that I regularly listen to. So, Six Music, Radio 2, and occasionally Radio 1. I've not come across them before. But I think they definitely deserve to be heard more on the basis of this record.
Yeah, agree.
Right. So now, listeners, you know which albums to go and buy, download, order on vinyl. What are you waiting for? Get to it.
Cool. And the shops are open.
Yeah, well and true. Yeah. Not that there's any record. Well, actually, there are some record shops still. But.
Yeah. You know what I mean. All right, then.
Until next
time.
Yes. When there'll be more records and more music and more versions of Lockdown.
Yeah.
Until then.